Saving for a deposit can take time, but did you know there are government grants and stamp duty exemptions which can speed up this process? Dad, could you tell us about a few of them?
That's right, Nicola. There's some amazing grants available, subsidies available, concessions available for first home buyers to get into the property market, especially first home buyers. And it's designed to encourage people to also build as well. So these grants are generally available for first home buyers looking at building. And everyone loves free money, especially when it's given to you from the government. So it's really important to understand what money is available to you to be able to get your hands on.
Well, how much money can I exactly get?
Well, that really depends on what you're doing and which state you're in. But let's just start off with New South Wales. So in New South Wales, you can get a first homeowners grant of $10,000 if you were to purchase land and build or buy a brand new house. And that's for a purchase price up to $750,000. So that's $10,000 given to you from the government to go towards your first purchase.
Does it have to be $750,000?
Or less. Yep, so up to $750,000.
That's your maximum.
That's your maximum, yep. On top of that, there's also stamp duty concessions. There's stamp duty concessions up to $799,000. So to give you an idea, stamp duty for a $799,000 purchase in New South Wales would be around that $31,000 approximately. But if you were to take advantage of these concessions, you'd only be paying $7,000. There's savings available of around $24,000 on government stamp duty there. So in saying that, the sweet spot probably is really around that $750,000 mark, where you can get the $10,000 grant as well as save on stamp duty, which probably works out to be about a $34,000 savings for you, which, you know, if you're saving $1,000 a month, that is almost 3 years of savings that you can benefit from.
So if I was to buy a $900,000 house, that means I get nothing, or do I still get something?
Unfortunately, you won't get anything. So what we've actually got is a booklet available for people to download, which they can download below, which will have all the information they need to know about the first homeowners grant in the state where they are. So we'll talk about the first homeowners grants, the stamp duty concessions, the government guarantees. So there's a booklet available because there is a lot of information that you need to understand. And your broker can also help you with this information as well when you are looking at buying.
Okay, what about Victoria?
In Victoria, the first homeowners grant is $10,000 as well for brand new properties, up to $750,000, just like New South Wales. There's also stamp duty concession where no stamp duty is payable up to $600,000, but you still get a concession up to $750,000 for stamp duty, which then reduces obviously as the purchase price increases from $600,000 to $750,000. So to give you an idea, if you were to purchase a house in Victoria, for $749,999, stamp duty would normally be $40,000. With a concession, you're only paying $12,000. So the savings is $28,000 in stamp duty in Victoria. Now that doesn't have to be a brand new property. So in Victoria, you can be a first home buyer, buy an established house, and have some stamp duty exemptions there.
How does it vary in Queensland?
Yeah, so in Queensland, their first homeowners grant is actually $30,000. So 3 times the amount of what it is in Sydney and Victoria, or New South Wales and Victoria. So they've just increased that. I think it was November 23, they increased that from $15,000 to $30,000. So the government's done that to try to stimulate construction and to try to help first home buyers get into the property market. So that's quite a good grant available in Queensland there.
Is that with the same purchase price of $750,000?
That is, yeah. So up to $750,000.
So why is it such a big difference, like a $30,000 grant?
It's got to do with government policy and where their economy is up to. So that government's obviously trying to stimulate the building industry, trying to help first home buyers get into the property market and push that along a little bit. So that's the main reason. So that's the first homeowners grant for Queensland. Now, stamp duty concessions, that's where they are different to New South Wales and Victoria. So you don't pay any stamp duty for any property purchase up to $550,000. So any first home buyer buying their first house up to $550,000, no stamp duty, which is a saving of around $10,500.
So on top of that, they also get the grant.
So if you're buying a brand new property at $550,000, you wouldn't pay stamp duty, and then you'd also get $30,000 a grant. But if you are in Queensland and you can find a property for $550,000 and it's brand new, you wouldn't pay stamp duty, and you would also get $30,000 a grant. In saying that, in Queensland, there probably are properties that you can qualify for that. But in Brisbane specifically, you probably will struggle to find a house for $550,000, which is brand new.
What does this look like for WA?
Yeah, so in WA, again, first homeowners grant available there for new houses, $10,000.
So the same as Sydney.
Same as Sydney and or New South Wales and Victoria, yeah. With stamp duty concessions, their purchase price threshold is $530,000, where you would normally pay $19,000 on stamp duty. Up to $530,000, you would only pay $5,000 stamp duty. So about a saving of $14,000 there in WA.
So is there any concession for stamp duty in WA?
Yeah, there is. Up to $530,000, you will have a stamp duty concession. So if you were to pay stamp duty, it's around the $19,000. But with the concession, you're only paying $5,000 for first home buyers. So basically saving around $14,000 in stamp duty by buying a house in WA for your first home. On top of that, it's the government first home owners grant again, up to $530,000, but again only for new properties. So it's about trying to find a new property for $530,000
where your stamp duty,
where you can get stamp duty and the first home owners grant.
How about South Australia, where we're from?
Yeah, so in South Australia, we have a first home owners grant of $15,000, again different to the other states, where there actually isn't a threshold. So you can buy land and build up to any value, and you'll be entitled to get $15,000 a grant if you're a first home buyer.
And that's definitely an advantage.
It's definitely an advantage because it was previously $575,000, and what was happening was people could not buy land and build less than $575,000.
And then they wouldn't be eligible.
And they wouldn't be eligible, correct. It then got increased to $650,000 for a short term, and then they removed that completely. So basically any purchase for a brand new property for a first home buyer would be entitled to get $15,000. So the other side of it is stamp duty. So in regards to stamp duty, you can buy a brand new house up to $650,000 and pay no stamp duty, or up to $700,000 and you'll get a discount off your stamp duty. Or buy vacant land up to $400,000 and build, so to any value, and you wouldn't pay stamp duty on your land portion, and you would still get the $15,000 a grant. So that's probably the sweet spot where you could buy land up to $400,000 with a build contract, pay no stamp duty, and still get $15,000 a grant as well as being a first home buyer.
Is the likelihood of finding a block of land for $400,000 in SA high or not? Really?
Definitely possible. It is definitely possible when you go in the northern suburbs and also the southern suburbs. So to give you an idea, I know the south area very well. I know a block of land that is, say, 300 square metres will probably be around that $300,000 to $350,000 mark. So you can definitely get a block of land less than $400,000.
So what about Tassie?
So in Tasmania, they have a first home owners grant available of $10,000 for property purchase or builds up to $600,000. In regards to stamp duty, this is where they are very good. They've got no stamp duty for purchases up to $750,000 for first home buyers, and that can be either new or established. So basically, any established house up to $750,000 for a first home buyer, there's zero stamp duty payable. So that's quite a significant saving, probably of around $28,000.
That sounds a lot better than living in SA.
Yeah, so they're obviously trying to encourage people just to buy houses, not just brand new houses. So it's quite unique there for Tasmania.
So what is it like in ACT?
Yeah, interesting. In ACT, being Canberra, where Parliament is, they're not offering any incentives at all for stamp duty or for first home buyers grants at all.
So unlucky to be living there as a first home buyer.
Very unlucky, yep.
And finally, how about the NT?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So at the moment, it is only $10,000 for the first home owners grant, but they've just had a change in ministers there where Liberal government has just got in. One of their election promises was to actually increase the first home owners grant to $60,000. It hasn't been passed yet, but I would say
that's pretty.
Yeah, it's quite significant. So I would say watch this space for Northern Territory.
What about stamp duty for the NT?
So for stamp duty in the Northern Territory, for buying land and building, there's no stamp duty applicable at all. So again, they're trying to encourage the building industry over there.
That's good.
Yep. So the other benefit with Northern Territory, so you might buy your first house there, you might live there, you might go work there and buy a house there, because I know you like Darwin, Nicola, because we've been there. We've got a lot of family there and we've been there a lot of times. You might buy your first home there, work there for a couple of years. That house might then turn into be an investment property for you. And the other benefit that Northern Territory has is they've got no land tax applicable on their properties as opposed to nearly every other state in Australia.
So if that was to turn into an investment? So
that could be turned into an investment and rented out. And the yields in Darwin are also generally better than most other states because they have quite a transient population where people go there, they work, they rent, and they move on. So the rental demand in Darwin is quite high. So Darwin could potentially be an option to buy a house, live in, go work there, and then come back to Adelaide and have that property as an investment over there.
So it's kind of a booming state.
Hasn't grown.
Territory.
Well, Darwin has been very stable for a long time and hasn't had much growth.
But now it's building up, do you reckon?
I think it's got potential to grow, yes.
So in summary, we've established that it changes very often and every state is different. So to keep on track with the changes the government's making, click the link in the show notes below and you'll be able to download the booklet with all the information attached. Dad, is there any final words you want to leave us with?
Always touch base with your broker, because there's
They'll
also
have the most
there's also the
updated.
government guarantee scheme, which you should take into consideration, which allows you to borrow up to 95% with no lender's mortgage insurance. And there are some thresholds around that which you need to be aware of. And that's where you could really get a huge benefit with a low deposit, getting into the property market, first homeowners grant, and no stamp duty, taking advantage of all three government schemes that are available.
We all like a little bit of free money. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. My name's Nicola Kef and we'll see you next week.